Hi, everyone. I am Dasanka, the Director of Partnerships for The Conversationalist, and we are so excited to be back with another list panel, and tonight is human rights. If you aren't already a part of our community, please join. And if you don't know who we are The Conversationalist. We are the go-to destination for Gen Z through our awesome community platform and through our social media. So go ahead and join and text 1-877-222-119 with the word unify to join our community. Awesome. So I'm so excited for all of our amazing Gen Z list honorees tonight, and of course, our distinguished celebrity guest. So let's just get into it. So we are thrilled to honor our 2020-2021 Celebrity List Honoree for Human Rights. He is a multi-hyphenate creator who you may recognize from some of his hit songs that have over 500 million streams with nearly 1 billion views on YouTube, or from his starring role on Netflix's Finding Ohana. He uses his platform to take action and bring human rights and the fight for equality to the forefront of conversations, where he amplifies the voices of others while unifying the world through his music. I am so excited to introduce Alex Aiono. Hi, Alex.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh man, I can't complain. It's pretty cold out here in Los Angeles right now, so I get to wear sweaters and hoodies, which is my favorite weather.
Me too. I'm in LA and I've been freezing all day. I've been next to the fireplace.
It was cold today. Like I went out to my car this morning and it was iced over. Very not like LA, but I love cold weather, so I'm not too mad at it.
It's definitely a fun change of pace, but not our normal weather.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to switch it up.
Exactly. We get our winter, so perfect. But thank you so much for letting us honor you. You are such an inspiration. I know everyone at Team TC is such big fans of you, and I know so many of our Gen Zers in our community look up to you, so it's really exciting to have you. And I'm excited to learn more and ask you a few questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally honored to be here, and as I'm sure I'll mention many times, an award like this, or even just a nod like this, to me feels super undeserving on my part, and so I'm just really humbled and grateful to be here.
Awesome. Well, again, we're so excited. I'm going to say that 1 million times too. So. So, like I said, you are such an inspiration for how you've been able to connect with others through music and put advocating for human rights at the forefront of your mission as a musician. What inspired you to advocate for human rights?
You know, I think growing up for me, my parents always embedded in my brain to trust my gut and follow my gut and be loyal to myself, be loyal to my heart, be loyal to what my gut tells me. And I think I've always felt like being loyal to myself is sticking up and standing with those who need standing with and need support. And I think that's just transitioned into my career as I've seen that I have an opportunity to be a voice for people who could use some more support, or for people who don't have a voice. And I think that's just kind of led me to this path of always looking out for what I can be doing and what more I can be doing to serve others and to support those who need that support.
I love that. It is so inspiring to see somebody like you using your platform for good. I know it's inspiring for me, but I can speak for everyone, I'm sure. And how has your passion for human rights inspired your songwriting process, if at all?
You know, I released my debut album, The Gospel of 23, this last year. And when I wrote the album, writing the album was really selfish for me, in a great way, in a good kind of selfish. You know, I wrote about the struggles that I went through. I wrote about my upbringing. I wrote about my demons that are in my closet, and I wrote about the greatest successes of my life, and I wrote about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as we're preparing to release this album in a year full of negativity, in a year full of hatred, in a year full of discrimination and prejudice and just all around negativity, it kind of felt selfish and starting to turn in a less positive way if I just released this album that was me, 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 me. And at that same time, I had met a lot of amazing people, including my dear friend Dee Wilson, including NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, getting to connect with people like Shaun King and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think my heart just, again, I always will go back to trusting and also being loyal to my own heart. My heart said, we got to do something. We have to add more. And so when it came to my art, my dear friend I mentioned before, Dee Wilson, had released a song called The Medicine. And it hit me in such a strong way that I asked him if we could add it to the album and make a huge donation and try and just raise money, raise awareness, and continue the conversation towards a better future. And I think that was a very big staple for me, because songwriting has always been very personal for me. It's always been about writing about myself and my own heart and hoping that people relate to it. And I think I learned through that lesson. I learned through people, amazing people like Dee Wilson, amazing people like the people we've worked with at NAMI and across the board, that sometimes it's more important to step out of the light or to shine your light on something else instead of yourself, especially if you're an artist, because you have a platform, you have the opportunity, you have a chance to be a voice for people to hear. And I think it's very, very imperative that not just myself, but everybody with a platform stands up for what they believe in and stands up for who they really are and is loyal to their own heart, as I've been very lucky to be this last year.
I mean, it's really beautiful how you've taken your personal passions and what you're passionate about fighting for in terms of like human rights and have married it, with music. I think a lot of other artists should take a note from you with that, especially releasing music in the year we've had in 2020.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. Like, I can't imagine releasing music and, wanting to be like, look what I made. But then considering everything else that's happening in the world, it's really incredible how you've been able to navigate that over the past year. So congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, honestly, I draw inspiration from other artists. I don't want to take credit for being the first person who's ever used their art to speak out. Yeah. We've had artists speaking out for decades on decades on decades, from Sam Cooke. Earlier this last year, I covered A Change Is Gonna Come, and that was a song that was written so long ago about something that we're still dealing with today. You have songs about pain and hardship and oppression and discrimination, and that's been happening for decades and decades. And so I consider myself very, very lucky that I've been able to learn from amazing trailblazers who use their art to shine light on very, very important topics.
Amazing. And I'm sure you're going to be a trailblazer for so many artists to come as well. So
thank you.
It's amazing. And that actually leads me into my next question. I was going to talk a little bit about the gospel at 23. So you've recently released it, your debut album, so crazy during the pandemic, and have so many other incredible songs that are raw, vulnerable, and so inspiring. How do you hope your music impacts human rights efforts?
I think this album for me was telling my story in its entirety, and honestly, outside of what we've spoken on with The Medicine, which is the song, the bonus song with Dee Wilson, the rest of the album is me expressing my story, telling people who I am, and I think my biggest piece of that I've learned, especially with the last few years of creating a social following, having an amazing relationship with people online, is that the more that I exposed who I truly am, all of the good, all of the bad, all of the ugly, all of the insecurities, it's really, how do I say this? It's made a lot more comfort in conversations with people. But I feel like a lot of fans have been able to open up to me a little bit more about what they're going through. And it might be because I started by telling people where I am. I have songs on my album like Rolling Rain that discuss my mental health issues, that discuss dealing with anxiety and depression. I have songs talking, the intro to Happy Ending, that discusses the how life isn't always great, and sometimes you have to go through hell to get out on the other end and see your happy ending and really feel that positivity. I hope that it pays forward in the same way that being open on social media does, which people can listen to that song, relate, not feel so alone, and also in that same breath then feel like, well, if I'm not alone, then but I felt alone, somebody else probably feels alone. So let's try and continue these conversations, open up these insecurities that we all feel, but feel like we're the only ones feeling it, and just become stronger together.
Yeah, and it really humanizes you too, because so many of your fans look up to you as a celebrity, but maybe even with a perfect life. But once they listen to your music, it's like you're just a human too, just like everyone else. And I think that that's such a special connection to have with your fans, and just forms like a better relationship with your fan base. So I think that's really amazing.
They're absolutely for me, if it wasn't for the support, and not just from the fans all over the world, but from friends, from families, from mentors, teachers, I definitely wouldn't be able to be as vulnerable as I've been. I wouldn't be able to be as open about how I live and who I am.
Amazing. So what advice do you have for Gen Z looking to get involved in human rights advocacy?
I think I would just give the same advice that I have, that I've been given, which is you got to be loyal to your heart. You got to be loyal to your gut. You got to be brave about it too. If you want to really make a change, it takes bravery, whether it's having that uncomfortable conversation with your friend or your family who might think a different way, whether it's having whether it's being brave and stepping up and being on the front lines of a protest that others can't be on the front lines of, whether it is posting in solidarity, whether it is donating to a cause, whether it is and any of those take bravery, because you are going to stand up, and and people might not agree with that. People might think you're crazy, or they might think you're wrong, and their thoughts might make you think you're wrong. I can't tell you how many times in this whole last year I've thought, what if I am on the wrong side of the fight? Like there was so much hatred, so much negativity towards what I had been fighting for and who I had been fighting for, that it can get in your head. And if it wasn't for amazing mentors, one of my mentors just walked in this door that I'm having dinner with later, who told me, it's specifically in times like this that you have to remain loyal to yourself. You have to remain loyal to your heart and your gut, because in times when everybody's telling you you're wrong, and everybody's telling you stop fighting for that, like you're on the wrong side of the fight, your heart is never going to lie to you, and your gut is never going to lie to you. You can always you can always trust that that's going to tell you the truth, and it's going to tell you what you really feel inside. And as long as you remain loyal to that, you can always be proud of what you've done.
That is such great advice. I am taking notes myself. But it all starts with a conversation, and that's what we're all about here at the Conversationalist, is having those hard conversations, and especially having those hard conversations with people who may have different views and opinions. Yeah. And that's how we can work towards actionable change, and hearing each other out and respecting everyone, and doing it in an effective and productive way. So I love that, with staying true to who you are throughout. So
oh man, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I have one last question for you. Of course, we've talked about how you've been using your voice for good through making music and bringing people together. What do you think we can all do to work together towards unification?
I don't want to. I'm going to do some shameless promo for the movie that's coming out this Friday, Finding Ohana, that you had mentioned earlier. And while we were filming the movie, we spent a lot of time in Hawaii. And you learn, being Polynesian, I thought I knew a lot about the Hawaiian culture. Being a part of that movie made me realize how little I knew about the culture, and especially how little I knew about the term Ohana. I feel like as a kid, especially a millennial growing up, watching Lilo and Stitch, you have that classic phrase, Ohana means family, family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. And when you get out there and you really enrich yourself in the culture, you realize that they don't just mean your blood. They don't just mean your mom and your dad and your cousins and your sisters. It is everybody you meet they treat with that love and that respect. In an ideal world, and on that path to this ideal world that I have in my mind, it starts with having that same mentality, that same appreciation and respect and love for other people, the same way that they did on set and in Hawaii, and with everybody you saw, you had this love and respect. It didn't matter what the color of your skin is. It doesn't matter how you identify or how you choose to love others or anything that makes you who you are. They celebrate that. They find that beautiful. They find that amazing. And it was a huge lesson that I might have known in a certain amount, but really when you're out there and you're treated like family and everybody's just giving each other this overwhelming respect, it reminds you that we can really make huge change. We can really all inhabit this earth together with love, with positivity, without war, without discrimination, without separation. And I think that if we continue moving forward and we inspire people, we call it out when it's not happening, and we stand up for those who are not being treated in that way, that's to me the best way that we can get started now. You know, there's a lot of things that take time, and this is something that we can do right now, every day as we wake up, a decision we can make every second of the day to make a change.
I love that. I feel like everyone needs to hear that, especially right now. So that's so amazing. And I'm so excited for finding Ohana, and I know so many other people are as well. So congratulations on that. So wild. Such a huge accomplishment. And, you know, we're just so lucky to have honored you. You're so amazing. And I just wanted to say thank you so much again for letting us honor you and hopping on with us tonight, and sharing all of your wisdom.
I mean, I'm looking at this. It was sent to me, and I'm looking at it, and it sits right on my desk as I make music every day. And it's really, I feel like this award is super, I feel very undeserving of it. I feel very, if anything, this award will serve as a reminder to live up to this honor that you guys have very much so blessed me with. And so I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be a part of this among so many Gen Zers who have this mindset. We are the future. Whether you're a millennial, whether you're Gen Z, I don't know what comes next, but it seems like whoever's next as well. This is our world, and it's our world to make better. It's our world to save in many ways. It's our world to and it's our world to improve every single day. So I'm so proud to be a part of a group of people who have this mindset at such a young age. And I'm so blessed to be here. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks everybody. Have an amazing week. All right.
Wow. I'm pretty speechless from that. That was amazing. I took so many mental notes, and I hope everyone else did too. I see the comments. Everyone in the comments are so excited. Wow. I'm literally speechless. But now I'm so excited to talk to each and every one of our Gen Z human rights honorees. Kicked it off strong, and we're just getting started. So let's kick it off. Our first honoree is the founder of Spectrum and Women Inspiring Social Harmony from Texas. She uses her organizations to amplify often unheard voices by providing resources and managing a team of writers who publish articles about LGBTQ issues. If she were addressing a huge crowd, she would say, "Nobody does anything significant alone." We are honored to welcome a young woman who uses her voice for good by amplifying other voices and stories. Welcome to the stage, Arushi Pant.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. It's so great to be here.
Hi, it is so great to have you. You are so incredible, and you know, you really truly use your voice for good by bringing light to issues that the LGBTQ community face. And how do you hope your writing continues to fight for equal human rights?
I think at the core of writing is really getting to know people's stories. I think whenever people think of conversations, you know, people often think more about talking, about how they're going to respond to somebody. And I think that when it comes to writing, it's more about sitting back and listening to what people have to say, to really sitting down and listening and being open to people's experiences and their stories. So I hope that my writing continues to amplify communities that often aren't really listened to. I think a lot of times people will, try to get to know someone, but they won't put in the effort to really listen. They'll be so focused on coming up with things to say instead of really being as open as possible and getting to know somebody. So I think, when it comes to writing, I think it is really important to really share those stories, really understand the core of who people are. And I just hope that my writing continues to do that, continues to amplify these voices that remain unheard for so long. And I hope that it continues to make people feel like they're really being heard and like what they're saying is actually being listened to by people around the world.
I love that. Listening is one of the biggest parts of having a conversation, especially like a productive, effective conversation. So I love that. That's a reminder for everybody. Listening is so, so, so important. So I love that you said that, and so impressed with all that you were doing. And we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Thank you.
Awesome. Our next human rights honoree is a 17-year-old activist, philanthropist, performing artist, entrepreneur, content creator, and aspiring filmmaker. What does she not do? Her ultimate goal in life is to create art, change, and safe spaces. She is the founder of the Next Gen Come Up. Through her organization, she organizes a team of young advocates, writers, creatives, and aspiring revolutionaries who are not only passionate about spreading awareness, but who want to join forces with other Gen Zers to strike positive change in the world as well. Our next human rights honoree is Anya Dillard. Awesome. Hi, Anya.
It's so great to meet you. It's really great to be here.
So great to meet you as well. We are so honored to have you here. And you are really a true unifier. You've brought people together to work towards positive change in this world and advocating for human rights. So what advice do you have for other Gen Zers who may want to unite with other like-minded people when it comes to fighting for human rights?
Yeah, I think that, being a change maker and being a unifier overall has a lot to do with being able to completely dismantle your own echo chamber and understanding the importance of having empathy, even when you may not understand someone on the other side. And our generation is one that is filled with passion and filled with ambition, and we have a very loud voice. And I myself have had to learn, how to not be so defensive when I come into contact with people whose views may be completely opposite to mine. And learning that along my journey has really helped me to understand the benefits in listening and learning from other people, even when I may disagree, and using that to construct a way bigger picture of the issues going on today. Because if we don't have a bigger picture, then we'll never understand the nuances that really do need fixing. So I would say that my major point of advice to anyone that wants to become a unifier, or even who wants to start a conversation about politics or social issues, try your hardest to hear someone else's point of view and to understand. You may not have to agree. I'm not saying you have to change your beliefs for anyone, but it is really a valuable skill when you can look at someone who has opposing beliefs to yours and use their beliefs to learn more about the cause that you are both talking about, or to use it to better understand how to better the situation for both of you. So, yeah.
That is a really valuable skill that I know everybody struggles with, of course, because we're all human, but it's so important to keep in the back of your mind. It's so beautiful to talk to somebody and you may not agree with one thing that they believe, but it's so beautiful to still have a respectful conversation and to genuinely try to understand where they're coming from and respect their opinion, because they're passionate about it for a reason, just as you are. So that is amazing advice. And I love it. And I'm so excited to talk to you in a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Wow. She is amazing. I see everyone popping off in the comments. I know it is such a great group of people, and we are just getting started. Our next honoree is the founder of Strategies for Black Lives. He focuses on advocating for sustainable policy reform. He has dedicated his life to justice, service, and the empowerment of youth voices. discovering ways to champion social justice when he was 15 years old, and he served as the founding president of his high school's Black Student Union. He has served on the Department of Education's Borough Student Advisory Council, eventually becoming the chairperson of the Chancellor's Student Advisory Council, representing 1.1 million of his peers. His advice for people looking to find their voice is take your time and start small. Welcome, Francie Lusencourt. Hi. It is so awesome to have you on our platform. You are so incredible and have been doing so many incredible things at such a young age. It's really remarkable. And what you have achieved so far is nothing short of incredible. And so what inspired you to start your organization's Strategies for Black Lives, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Thank you for that question. So essentially around May, the end of May, with the George Floyd video surfacing on the internet, my longtime best friend tried to show me the video, and we were basically having a conversation about the situation over a casual drink. And we were reflecting on our start in activism in high school 6 years ago, and how the first protest that we attended together was around the Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner era. And we were basically having a reflection period that, 6 years later, we're wrapping up college now, and there's still the same issues. People are still protesting for the same human rights, for Black lives. And eventually we decided that enough is enough. And even though that we're in a global pandemic, we're going to, post on social media and try to develop a response, a strategy, so to speak, on how we can fight for Black lives, even if it's during a pandemic. What could we do, whether it's writing up certain policies, protesting. And eventually, when we put out that call to action on social media, things snowballed, and we ended up becoming an organization that led a lot of the protests and the movement of New York City to this day.
Wow. It is such a beautiful thing that you built an organization out of everything going on in 2020 to help solve a problem. And I really commend you for being at the front lines, for really, working and advocating for change. So that is so inspiring. And I'm so excited to, learn more about your organization and talk to you a little bit later.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. This is so much fun. Oh my gosh, I could do this all night. Learning so much from everyone, and I hope you are all too. I'm sure you are. And let's keep it rolling. Our next honoree is a student and writer. She devotes herself entirely to protecting our planet and building resilience and confidence among youth. She fosters cross-cultural conversations about Black life and culture by combining her passion for writing and activism. She does this work because growing up, she didn't see others using their voice to take a stand. She wants to empower her peers to advocate for themselves and the future. She continued activism in college because she didn't see herself reflected in mainstream activism. We are so proud to amplify her voice tonight. Welcome, Peyton Wilson. Hi, Peyton.
Hi. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you. So honored to be honoring you tonight. And it is so admirable how you've combined both your passions for writing and activism to be a leading advocate in the fight for human rights. What have been some of your proudest moments working towards equality?
Yeah, probably every single time I've been with my peers and they have had the courage to step outside of themselves and imagine a world where we don't have to fight for all this stuff, right? When we're talking about human rights, it's talking about a place, living in a society and living in a world where no one has to worry about, if I go to walk to CVS around the corner, is someone gonna profile me? If am I gonna have food on the table? Am I gonna have healthcare? So coming together and uniting to commit to that future that doesn't exist yet. A big part of activism is having an imagination, having the courage to imagine a place where we don't have to do this anymore. And so my proudest moments have been when my peers and the people who are in this fight with me really commit to that. Specifically, recently, the Black Student Union at my school, which I am a part of, we raised $10,000 for Black Lives Matter organizations in DC. And that was really what really told me that, okay, we can do this. This generation, we got it. It's fine.
That's amazing. Wow. Gen Z is so strong, and especially, people like you. It's really mind-blowing what you're doing. And I love how you said that activism takes courage. Like, you really have to put yourself out there to advocate for, for human rights, in your case. And it's so admirable to see young people like you doing that. And it's just really amazing. So I'm so honored to have you here tonight, and I'm so excited to talk to you a little bit more later.
Thank you.
Thanks. You guys, this is so much fun. Okay, we have to keep going. But our next human rights honoree is the founder of Catcalls of NYC and Chalkback. She started Catcalls of NYC in 2016 for a school project, inspired by her own experiences of street harassment. She and her organizations raise awareness about gender-based street harassment. She's on a mission to end the gender-based street harassment that harshly impacts so many girls, young women, and LGBTQIA+ individuals every day globally. She wants to bring awareness to an issue that is so often ignored, and does so with her belief that chalking back is a way for young people to take on this issue on the street level and make our voices heard. So I'd love to welcome Sophie Sandberg. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. It is so awesome to have you. Us at TC are such big fans of you and all of your work. So it's really an honor. But you amplify the voices of women around you and around the world and give them a space to tell their stories. How have you seen gender inequality within your work, and how do you hope to fight back against street harassment and fight for women to have equal rights?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that great question. Also, I'm just so inspired by all of the other panelists, and I'm so excited to be here. So basically with Catcalls of NYC, we received submissions every single day about gender-based street harassment. So every day we're seeing this form of gender inequality and how it impacts women both in New York City and also around the world. Chalkback is made up of catcalls accounts around the world, so we get lots of different submissions. So really seeing how people experience street harassment on a daily basis, especially during a pandemic, just going to the supermarket, just trying to go to the pharmacy, whatever it is, a lot of people are still facing this gender-based discrimination. So that's how I've seen gender inequality happening on Catcalls of NYC and with the global movement Chalkback. And then, how we're trying to fight it. So we're fighting it through social media and through public spaces. So we, one, give people the power to use their voice and speak up about what's happened to them. Street harassment is so often belittled and made to seem like a small problem. So giving people the space to speak up about it and then using their story to actually bring public attention to it is really the main part of the work we're doing both in New York and around the world. And then the second part, of course, is awareness and education. By sharing these things and showing people who maybe don't know what's happening, that this is happening all the time, we can engage new people in the solution as bystanders and allies specifically.
Amazing. I mean, I've followed your organizations for a while now, so I feel like I'm well versed, but, education is really the first step. So it's so amazing that, you guys are really taking the time to educate people about what's going on, and really bringing light to it and, providing a safe space for women to tell their stories. So that is so incredibly inspiring, and I'm so excited to continue following your journey, and I'll talk to you in a little bit. Great. Thanks. Wow. So incredible. Wow. Our next human rights honoree is from the Commonwealth of Virginia. She's the co-founder of Hyphenated America. A proud Moroccan American, she is interested in the intersection between law, politics, media, and the arts. She lives by the words, "Spend time devoted to what you love," and she works on making immigration accessible through media and educational resources. We are so excited to honor Sophia Hudegi.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to have you on our platform. The Conversationalist is such a huge fan of Hyphenated America, so it's an honor to have you here tonight. And we're so impressed with everything you're doing. what are your ultimate goals as a human rights advocate?
Yeah, so thank you so much. So specifically as an immigrant rights advocate, I think it's important to remember that a truly comprehensive and coherent immigration system will actually address the current terms and conditions of admission to and presence in this country, as well as the external forces that propel migration. So, flight from war, repression, and poverty, these are reasons for migration as old as human history. So as both a human rights advocate and especially as an immigrants' rights advocate, my goal is fostering and ensuring the creation of an equitable, personhood-driven, and understanding immigration system that provides a realistic pathway for immigrants to come to the US and actually provides access to counsel. Additionally, as you noted, there is a lack of accurate immigration education in the United States, and this combined with this polarized political climate and economic uncertainty makes understanding the basics and nuances of immigration essential to America. So we're trying to address that over at the organization I co-founded alongside Maria Castillo, Hyphenate America. But overall, my core goal is to provide respect, a platform for dialogue, and the ability to dream.
Amazing. We're so lucky to have you and your organization present in the Gen Z universe and at the Conversationalist. Your work is so incredible, and we're so honored to be honoring you and everything that you're doing tonight. And I'm excited to talk to you in a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys, we're on our last honoree. I'm so sad, but we have a lot more to come still, so don't worry. Our last honoree is the founder of Virus Racism, steering committee member at Teens Take Charge as well. He's an advocate for education, racial, and youth justice. He develops social media plans with Virus Racism and is developing education policies with Teens Take Charge. Through all of his amazing work, he fights for equity for those who continue to be oppressed. He describes Gen Z as vocal, and we are so excited to see him use his voice. At just 17 years old, this honoree has wowed us. Let's bring William Deep to the stage. Hi, William.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor to have you. And from combating racism to educating the public on human rights, your work has really blown us away. How have all the events from this past year impacted your human rights activism work?
Such a good question. Yeah, we've seen so much this year, from the discrimination against the Asian American community due to COVID-19, to the uprise in the Black Lives Matter movement and protests that we see, to the school reopening conversation and whether or not we should be reopening schools this fall or next fall or this spring. So we've seen so much occurring this year and this past year. And it only made me realize that we have to be more intersectional with our work, whether that's me initiating Virus Racism or me doing a lot of work in Teens Take Charge. We always need to make sure that we have an intersectional lens where we see the different intersections between our movements, between our justices, but also our communities, and how one community's oppression can relate, but also translate to another community's oppressions. And how I've also realized that throughout all the events that we've seen this year, that Gen Z is the most powerful generation that there is, because if there's no generation that's going to do work, who else? We are the ones who have tools. We are the ones who have social media. We are the ones who are creating these organizations and understanding what's going on in order to fight for equity and justice and intersectionality.
Amazing. I mean, I couldn't agree more. We're so inspired by you and all of the work that you've done with your organizations, especially during such a crazy year like 2020. And it's so true. Gen Z has started so many organizations. It is so mind-blowing. I know I've talked to my parents and they said they didn't know anything about politics or anything about really anything when they were our age. And so it's really amazing to see such a young generation take a stand and fight for, what they believe in. So we're so proud to honor you as you're doing just that. And so now I'm going to keep you on screen and I'm going to bring everybody else, and we have a few questions to go over. Awesome. Yay. Got everyone here. Amazing. So if you want to answer the question, just go ahead and comment in the private chat and we'll get going. So first of all, That was all incredible. I have learned so much about you, but putting a face to the name and talking live is so much fun. And I just wanted to say that we are so beyond grateful that we were able to honor all of you tonight. And I feel so lucky to be able to learn more about each and every one of you. And I would love to pose one question to everyone. So for Gen Zers who are passionate about working towards equality and taking action to fight for human rights, where would you advise them to start? Oh, Anya?
Yeah, well, there's always so many ways that anyone can contribute, just like Alex was saying earlier. And I think that it's so inspiring to hear that from someone so influential, because it can often be startling to try and figure out where to start, especially when all you have to start out is your passion or your inspiration. And I love talking about where my personal inspiration came from, because I didn't always have an interest in politics and I didn't always put my creativity to the forefront. I used to be a really hardcore STEM girl, and that was a big obstacle for me because I thought I wanted to be an environmentalist. I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian or a zoologist. And because I was so involved in that world, I started to notice how few young Black girls were involved in that. Because of how diverse the community I grew up in was, I wasn't familiar with the idea of racism within my own social sphere because I had grown up seeing everyone. So as I grew older and I started to become curious about that, it really sparked a passion for politics in me, and I started to become really more diligent about the socioeconomic and political climate of our nation. And that became a really big thing for me when it came time to decide, like, what do I really want to pursue? And activism took the reins in that, and I started to get really involved in putting myself in spaces with other people who, also shared those passions. And I think that that's something that, a lot of people should take the step into doing more often, because when we have a passion, there are a lot of things in society that will try to derail us and try to manipulate our viewpoints. And, finding your tribe or finding communities such as the Conversationalist and other organizations to join or be a part of can really help you understand a greater purpose or find a network of people who also want to work towards, bettering society. So I think that's a huge part of, unifying. And that's something that I recommend that everyone take initiative to do. So
amazing. That was great advice. William?
Thank you. Definitely agreeing with everything Anya said, finding that network, finding those people who do fight for what you believe in, but also from people that you can definitely learn from. And for me, I would advise Gen Z to find that issue that you're passionate about, find that issue that that you want to make a difference in. For me, that was ending discrimination, but also recognizing intersectionality and fighting for educational equity for all students, for all backgrounds, for all identities. Growing up in New York City in the most segregated school system in the nation, we see how one student may be going through their best education system ever, but another student down the block does not have the same opportunities, does not have the same support, or does not have the same resources. So understanding that dilemma has made me and propelled me to fight for educational equity, to fight for racial justice, and for me to fight for what's best for our youth. And so just finding that issue and finding the organization that aligns with that is definitely so important. And if you can't find the organization to fight for your issue, start that organization, start that initiative, start that network.
I love that. That's so empowering. Amazing. Sophie?
Yeah, I mean, really just echoing what Anya and William both said, which were both amazing answers. Start from where you're at. Think about what personal experiences you have and what you want to use your voice to talk about. I think that what's come up a lot tonight is this idea of bravery. It's really brave to talk about issues that no one else is necessarily talking about, whether that's street harassment or whatever it is, and then find the skills you have to address it. Maybe it is using your social media platform. Maybe it's drawing on the streets with chalk. Maybe it's graphic design, whatever it is, use your skill set to try to address that issue that you're facing and that others are facing, to really amplify it and create a platform around it.
That's great advice. I love that. Sophia?
Yeah, so some of the issues that we've been discussing tonight, they're really big issues that can feel really overwhelming, and they're absolutely the things that permeate our existence. But as a result, it can be really hard to take that first step forward when you feel like all of these large things are kind of crushing you as you go out the door. So I did this exercise, and I always recommend doing it, is writing down on a notebook, what are 3 really specific and small issues that are impacting your community that really bother you? So whether it's like walking down the street and you're tripping on the sidewalk every day because, the local government hasn't necessarily responded to that specific claim, or looking outside and saying that there isn't necessarily like as many stop signs in your neighborhood as others. It's getting to that minute, then you can move forward with the larger. It makes you feel that you've accomplished something really specific, and then you can go larger. For me, it was looking around at my household. I'm the daughter of a Moroccan immigrant father and an immigration attorney mother. So immigration was always something that was discussed in my household. But as a result, it felt like a really crushing and overwhelming thing to start to address. So it was something that I really wanted to start by looking at little things. For me, it was looking at specific DACA regulations at my college and realizing what I could do to help students advocate for that, and then moving forward from there. It makes you feel that you've accomplished something really small, and then you can move forward with the larger.
Wow, that was great advice. That really is a great way to start, and that's something I've never thought of before. So I'm excited to do that myself. So that's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'd love to, jump to our next question. So you all have amplified so many voices in order to bring people together to fight for the greater good of humanity. What can we all do in our everyday lives to make sure we are amplifying the voices of those around us who may be oppressed? Feel free to hop in the private chat. Francie?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think oftentimes we're so used to the current dynamic in this country that we often assume that everyone has the ability to speak, or everyone has the ability to explain where they're coming from and their perspective. So it's really important that when you enter a space, or when you're entering a conversation about important ideas or topics that affect a lot of lives, you kind of have to have that reflection where it's like, who does this issue affect the most? And are they represented in an adequate way? And are they in this room? Because they often say that the people that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. Having a background in education and activism, oftentimes decisions are made for the student body without students being at the table, right? When it comes to policy decisions affecting Black lives, but you don't have Black representation in office or in that cabinet official position. So I think what we need to do, and I applaud William for bringing up intersectionality a lot, is that we need to understand that we may believe that we know what's best, but if you truly want to be an ally, or you truly want to empower the voices of other communities, you need to be willing to lend a hand and allow them to speak and give them that platform. So when we think twice and think about the activism work that we want to do, whether we're talking about LGBTQ issues or Black rights or civil rights or the issues of those that are deaf or hearing impaired, we just need to make sure that we're taking that intentional additional step to make sure that we're bringing in voices that are often overlooked, because only then can we have a full perspective and really approach that equitable and more just society that we all deserve.
Amazing. Couldn't have said it better. That was great. Peyton, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think a great first step is unlearning what you think an oppressed person or an oppressed community looks like. I know for me, that was a really big lesson that I saw a lot of my peers, and even to an extent myself, had to undergo, because a lot of the people who are impacted by the issues plaguing our society are in your classes. They're your neighbors, they're your friends. And, kind of like Francie is saying, like, you have to understand that not everyone has the voice, not everyone has the resources, not everyone has the ability to speak up on their behalf and on their lived experience. So it really, I think, doing research, I'm a big proprietor of education. Education is big in my family. Really just understanding my conception of what a person who is experiencing an issue, a person who is being marginalized may look like this, but what from my worldview, what from where I grew up influences that perception. And I think that will, one, allow you to have a more expansive outlook moving forward going into the work, but also gets more people involved. If you are looking to engage in the fight and you think that I only need to tailor my efforts towards this group of people, but this group of people are also dealing with the same issue. Going back to William's point of intersectionality, there's a lot of cross coalition building between the Black and the Latinx community, between the Latinx and the Southeast Asian community. There's a lot of our issues overlap, and I think grasping that is a great way to really just start off in the fight with activism.
Yeah, I mean, wow, that was such a great point. So awesome to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to throw it to Anya.
Yeah, I completely agree with Francie and Peyton when it comes to the aspect of intersectionality, because intersectionality is huge when it comes to really making solutions to the problems rather than, just having the conversation and being content with that. I feel like a lot of people get caught up in qualifying oppression, especially, me being someone who has always been really passionate about advocating for Black empowerment, the Black Lives Matter movement, for example. We often get caught up in, arguments about, okay, well, we've had it worse for longer. So, A, B, and C groups of people need to wait until we get this, and then we can start talking about, and realistically, that doesn't help anybody, because if they're, with the issues going on, it's life or death. It's not just, oh, I didn't get the lunchbox first, I got it 3 minutes later. Like, people are losing their lives. People are losing opportunities. People are suffering. People have been suffering for centuries because of this. And, it's really important to recognize that they're all human rights issues. Every issue that relates to disenfranchisement, whether it be racial, economic, educational, however you want to slice it, whether it be, violence overseas, violence in our own communities, whether it be, there are so many things you could list, but, they all come down to how we treat each other and how the establishments that we put our trust into treat us. And if we don't understand that, everyone needs to be good at the end of the day, then we'll just end up, constantly fighting back and forth about who got what first or who still has it bad. And that's not what we're all fighting for. We're all fighting for, like Alex said, our ideal perfect world where everyone is looked at as a human and everyone has empathy for one another. And, the value is put into, I have an equal distance away from an opportunity as you do. Whether I'm purple, whether you're blue, whether I'm tall or you're short, we both have an equal shot, and that's what makes us equal, and that's what makes the world, what would make the world a better place. So I feel like people really do need to understand the value of understanding intersectionality in order to make that a reality, in order to look at the bigger picture when really talking about these kinds of issues. So
amazing. Thank you, Anya, for that. Arushi, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what everyone has said. I also wanted to bring in the idea of echo chambers. I feel like a lot of times when it comes to amplifying, other people's voices and stories, just take a look at your feed if you have social media, you're seeing the same things getting reposted, the same infographics, the same, visuals. But you really have to ask yourself, is there a concrete change that's coming from this? A lot of times you'll see performative activism, especially in such a digital age. You'll see people who post infographics who post information, but don't do anything concrete with them. They don't sign petitions. They don't actually go to different events and things like that. So I think that the first step to really making sure that you're genuinely amplifying voices is to kind of step away from that, oh, I reposted this, that's my activism work for the day. That isn't enough. It's also really important to share resources, to share petitions, to share, different events like this that you can go to learn more about activism and how you can really amplify voices and things like that. So I think that it's important to just know that everyone doesn't think the same way as you. Although everyone in your feed may be posting, the same things, there's like a whole world of people out there who may not be educated, who may not know about these issues. So it's really important to kind of step out of your comfort zone and talk to these people who may not be, posting things on social media, who may not know about these issues, as well as making sure that you follow through with what you're posting. Make sure that your life really reflects what you're putting out there.
Mic drop. That's all I have to say with that answer. Wow, it has been so incredible hearing all of you speak. I'm just soaking it all in. This is amazing. I have one last question, and I'd love to hear from all of you. So our mission at The Conversationalist is to unify the world. How can we come together and unify to not only advocate for the importance of human rights efforts, but to also unify at large when it comes to finding common ground? how can we come together and start more of these important conversations? Anya, did you want to start?
Absolutely. I think that this is a really amazing question, and it really hit home for me because I had started organizing efforts and community functions and protests my sophomore year of high school, but they were often on a much smaller scale. And moving into 2020, I had struggled a lot with, continuing to pursue my activist passions because so much was going on in the world. So many members of my community felt so estranged from, connectivity and from politics even because of the chaotic nature of everything else that was going on. And I didn't know how to continue to unify or how to, just keep the momentum of all the movements that I had been fighting for going. And that's when the George Floyd situation happened. And at that time, I had been so, adamant about trying to sort everything out and figure out how to keep going. And it really did hit home for me. And it stumped me. And that's not something that happens a lot. And I took it as a learning experience. And I just remember feeling defeated at a point because, you don't realize how much you see things on a daily basis until they start to feel normal. And that freaked me out, especially when, I saw that video and I thought to myself, like, this has really become like a commonality in our society. This is something that is not, barely has shock value anymore. And that terrified me. And it's what inspired me to, call on a bunch of my peers and to unite with people who didn't even share the same political or political party as me, but who were saying, this is ridiculous. Like, we all have to do something in light of, everything going on, even though we're not supposed to be together, even though everything in the world seems like it's, telling us to stay apart. We have to unite for this. And, that's what brought us to ultimately organizing a protest that became the largest civil rights protest in our town's history, unexpectedly enough, which was, one of the proudest moments of my career. But it really taught me that, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of, selflessness to unite with other people, even when they do agree with you, because it takes, more than just your own personal goals. It takes more than your own ambitions. You have to really understand, what can I do to affect the bigger picture? When I'm gone, when my peers and I are gone, what can I do right now to move the needle just a little bit so that even if, generations prior to me are not completely different, how can I make their situation better? How can I continue the conversation to a point where, people on the other side can start to understand that this should not be normal. This should not be a commonality. We should be, getting out and standing together in the streets, no matter what color we are, and saying, people should not be dying because of this. And I think that that's, something that was really life-changing for me. And, especially to learn it at a time like 2020, really changed, how I looked at unifying, especially at large, and how I viewed mobilizing and organizing and, really using the outspokenness of our generation to foster an environment of love and unity and perseverance, even in times that, suggest otherwise. So.
And another mic drop. Like, Gen Z is really changing the world, and Anya, everything you're doing is just, it's really like mind-blowing at like how young you are. And, everyone here, you guys are really changing the world, whether you realize it or not. It's insane. And again, I'm just so lucky to be in your presence right now. It's so inspiring. Peyton, I'd love to pass it to you.
Yeah, I love this question. I go to GW, George Washington University in DC, literally blocks away from the White House, from all the interesting things that have been happening. And we think about this a lot. This is something that we talk about a lot at GW, specifically actually in one of my classes today. And a big takeaway and a big piece of information that I've learned, even just in hearing people having bipartisan conversations, the conversations I've had, I've always found that it's easier to come out of difficult conversations with a goal to unify when someone admits when they're wrong and when they're able to admit that they don't know and allow someone else to have their lived experience, whether you believe it or not, or whether you are convinced or not, use that to inform your activism and inform your thinking moving forward. Every single conversation where I admitted I didn't know anything and I allowed the person I was having the conversation with to educate me and allow me to, do my own research. Like I said, I'm big on education, big on learning. We were able to build a coalition. We were able to work and we were able to move forward. And I think a big part of unifying is coming from a place where you're able to learn, you're able to see the value in other people's experiences. Because like we've all been saying, we're all people, we're all human. And so understanding that in this big old country we have, in this big old world we have, that your microcosm is not the end all be all. Your experience is not finite. Other people's experiences are not finite, and that we can learn way more from one another than if we move through the world thinking that it's just here, it's just within us.
I love that. I mean, it's so important. It's okay not to know everything. I definitely don't know everything. You guys all know more than me, I'm sure, but nobody knows everything. Like, we're all human, like we said. It's okay to ask questions, and it's important to be vulnerable and be like, hey, I actually don't know anything about this. Can you please help educate me? That's how we're going to work towards change and actionable change in that. So I love that. Very awesome advice. So important. Sophia.
Yeah, so I think that Peyton really got at this. When individuals come to conversations with this ability to not only know, but also identify their blind spots, those conversations are going to be so much more fruitful. But additionally, I was thinking a lot about this, like nursery rhyme, and also things that I learned a lot in kindergarten. But you learn this in primary school, and I definitely forgot it. But it's so much harder to listen than to talk. Deep listening is a really difficult task. It's one that I'm actively working on every day. Sometimes it's better than others, but it can result in some of these, like the most fruitful conversations and actual actionable results. However, there's something that a close friend said to me that has really stuck with me and really altered my approach towards this idea of unification through conversation. And that it's only not necessary, but also not fruitful to debate yours or other individuals' humanity. And what that means for me is it's understanding your limits and knowing that where your non-negotiables are regarding actual human lives. And if someone wants to debate your ability and humanity, then that person might not actually be coming to that conversation with a desire to unify as a result. So knowing and approaching those conversations with that kind of understanding, it still allows you to, actively deep listen and look for those results, but it also ensures that you're, mentally sound the entire time.
That was a great point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Sophie.
Yeah, wow. So many good points have been made. I guess what I would just want to add is thinking about the space and the spaces that we're using to have these discussions. I think social media is great. I love social media. I use it every single day, probably too much. But I don't think social media is the best space for fruitful conversations and for dialogue and for discussion, which is why the Conversationalist is so great and creating good spaces for that. But some of the best conversations I've had where I'm disagreeing with people and coming out in a better place and more unified are on the street when I'm talking and when I'm able to talk to people there who might disagree with the project and the message behind the project. And we're actually able to find mutual respect face to face. Obviously, that's like more tricky during COVID. And then also with family, I think it's so important to kind of find where you're at with your family. And if you're able to have the more difficult conversations with family members, that often can lead to really productive conversations too. Yeah.
I love that. I 100% agree. William, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, just building off of what everyone says, and in order to have these conversations, I would also say just do what makes you scared, because if you're scared of something and if you're scared that you're going to mess up, or if you're scared that someone's going to come at you because you said something wrong, or if you're doing something wrong, then you know that you're doing the work right. Because for me, when I was able to initiate virus racism, I was scared that, oh, if I'm going to cold email or cold text someone that I don't know, that they're not going to reply back to me, or they're not going to respond to me, or they're going to think that I'm weird. But being able to expand virus racism and being able to work on virus racism, which talks about the Asian American community and talks about the discrimination against the Asian American community, I had to do what made me scared. I am scared, and I was scared. of randomly texting people and randomly emailing people and randomly contacting people about their experiences, about whether or not they wanted to get involved in the movement. But when I did what scared me so much, I was able to initiate these conversations and learn about different people's stories about their own discrimination, about their own intersections, and understanding how they understand this issue so much. But at the same time, I still get to learn, and I still have to admit to my own faults, and I still have to learn about what it means to be an activist and as a person in general. I have to make sure that whenever I do something that makes me scared, I always look back and say, wow, I was scared of that and now I can do it. And that's something that I would tell more people is if you're scared of something, then just do it. Because when you look back at that event and when you look back at what you're scared of, then you know that you overcame that. If you're scared of talking to one person, talk to 100 people. If you're scared of organizing your own organization, organize 10 organizations. If you're scared to talk and cold email 10 people, cold email 10,000 people, because it's whenever you do that one step, then that's going to initiate your entire form of progress, and that's going to help you making sure that you are doing the advocacy work, you are doing the intersectional work, and that you are making sure that you initiate conversations with people that you would have never imagined before.
Do what makes you scared. I think that's such a big takeaway from tonight. And the first thing when you said that, I was like, we need to put that on a t-shirt. So I love that. I know personally, the best results have come out of things that have scared me or things that have been out of my comfort zone. And I could not back that enough. That is such incredible advice. Francie, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to having more conversations like these and how we can reach a common ground, one thing I think about is the importance of humility. One of my favorite quotes that I often share is that a wise man knows nothing, and that we need to get past this idea that we know everything or that our perspective or our worldview is final and the most important. And when you approach conversations with a certain level of humility, understanding that you could learn something and that your perspective is only so limited within the grand scheme of things, you really are putting yourself in a position to learn as much as possible and to grow. Oftentimes people approach conversations as a way of validating what they already knew going into it instead of being challenged in a comfortable way so that they could learn something. And that's why I really appreciate William saying, do what makes you scared, because if we want to have good conversations and reach a point of unity and coalition building, it's important that we are not afraid to challenge ourselves. It's important that we're willing to have conversations that may not necessarily be part of our routine, may not necessarily be on topics that we're comfortable in, but if we're willing to participate, that will most often lead to a result that we don't necessarily anticipate, but can be something that leaves you with something that you learned or something that's positive. So I think when you approach it with humility and the ability to learn something that you didn't expect to learn, then you will definitely be better off. And that will lead to more shared experiences and more fruitful conversations, because imagine if you go into a conversation saying, I already know how it's going to start, the middle part, and the end, right? That isn't necessarily going to be a fruitful conversation for you or for the other person. But if you're willing to listen, to actually understand and listen, not just to respond, then you'll definitely be willing to have more conversations on relevant topics, and we'll definitely see some progress.
That was amazing. You're getting so much love in the comments right now. Thank you so much for sharing. And Arushi, take us home.
Yeah, I've heard so many amazing things. I kind of just want to say that I agree with what everyone has said. I think unifying people and really starting conversations is about being humble, being brave, being so many other things. But I also think something really important is to kind of, humanize the issue that you're talking about. A lot of times when it comes to these really big issues, once again, it's kind of like statistics and infographics being shared, and it's like these big organizations, these huge nonprofits oftentimes dominate social media and these other spheres, like Amnesty International. These organizations are doing amazing things, but oftentimes people will see these huge nonprofits as just one big whole. They don't see that there's individual people who are really leading these movements. I think that it's really important whenever you start a conversation to kind of remind people that we're person to person, it isn't just this one big human rights organization and then we're not trying to fight. It's really about sharing these stories. All these organizations are made up of people just like you and me. These are people who really want to bring about change. So when you do want to start a conversation, you don't want to immediately bombard them with statistics and facts. Just draw on the fact that, you know, we are human at our core. We have empathy and we want to listen and share stories. So just step away from that kind of the idea that, you know, you're just like an activist, not a person. You know, I think those both, you can be both an activist and both a person. You can be part of a huge organization, but also just be a human being who wants to talk to somebody. So I think stepping away from that mindset of, you know, I'm part of this big organization and you're all by yourself, I think really humanizing yourself and your story and the topics that you're passionate about, that is really key to getting, you know, unified and connecting with people around you.
What a great way to end. That was the perfect note to end on. I can't believe we're already done, but I just wanted to say thank you so much again for letting us honor all of you. It has been such an incredible night, and I know you've not only inspired me, but I know you've inspired so many others tonight, and I'm so excited to continue following your journey. And for everyone watching, you know, hype all the panelists up in the comments. Tell us what your favorite moment was from tonight. I couldn't even pick one, so that might be hard. And if you're not a part of our community, all you have to do is text Unify 1-877-222-1119 to join and to talk to all of these wonderful people, along with so many more. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.